Good evening. My name is Annie Hindenlang. I'm a principal at Topology, the planning firm that is representing the city through its Broad Street redevelopment efforts. You got this. So at the very smart request of the mayor and the council president, they asked that I come and give you all an update on how things are going through the redevelopment planning process. It is a long process. It has, very public pieces and then some behind the scenes work and then again, more public work. And it's been a while since we've met with the public and a while since we've, presented before you all to let you know where we are in the process. So we're going to quickly recap what we've done throughout the year this year and kind of where we are, mostly for the public as well, because we're about to start in January another big public outreach effort, and we want to make sure that people know what we're talking about, that they're re-engaged, and that we're able to keep people involved in this process as we keep moving it along. If you want to go to the next slide. I'm just going to real quick introduce, I guess we already introduced ourselves, so that's fine. Go through the redevelopment process, talk to you about the community outreach. There was significant community outreach earlier this year, as well as some market research, and then give you an idea of where things are going to move in the new year. Again, as I mentioned, one of our firm's specialties is redevelopment planning, and I do tend to get really excited, so if I start talking fast, just raise your hand and I'll slow down. But I enjoy this stuff. So one of our specialties is redevelopment planning, and we work on behalf of municipalities to help them achieve their community's goals and visions through public-private partnerships with developers within the redevelopment law. This is the designated redevelopment area that we have started kind of referring to as Broad Street West. It's 16 lots. It's a little over 10 acres. Over half of that is owned by the city. There's 11 owners within the redevelopment area, and it has about $10 million worth of assessed value, which for the proximity to a train station and in a location like Summit is fairly low, even though that seems like a larger number. Back in May of 2017, the governing body directed the planning board to undertake a preliminary investigation to find out if the properties that you just saw on that map met any of the criteria for in need of redevelopment. We worked with the planning board to do that preliminary investigation. We met with the property owners, we met with the tenants of those spaces in the properties, and we also met with those who surround those property owners and users that surround the areas to find out some background information on the site and learn more about the properties involved. The planning board passed a resolution in September of 2017 recommending all but 3 of the lots in the study for designation, and you all confirmed that in November of 2017. And that's when the redevelopment planning process starts. And most people think that after a redevelopment plan is adopted that's the end of the process. But as you'll see later on, there's still a lot more to go down the road and a lot more that's involved. So even though we are coming up on a milestone that will end the redevelopment planning process, there's a lot more public outreach and work that's involved past that. Throughout the planning period that we've been in now since November of last year, so about a year, we've had online feedback, we've had texting ways for people to submit, we've had public presentations, we've gone to public events, we've stopped at the train station during rush hour, which, believe it or not, people don't love when they're coming home and they have to see us bothering them. And we've had lots of stakeholder meetings, and all of this is in the effort to, one, understand the current conditions on the site, understand some of the expectations and needs of the community, and also make sure that we are keeping the property owners involved throughout all the process so that they're aware of what's going on and they're not feeling left behind. Additionally, we have also been doing some market research, some demographic analysis, and different kind of best practice land use analysis to understand what will eventually become the zoning for this area for development in the future. Can you click the next slide? I just want to make sure I'm not. Okay, go back real quick. So after, in January, we're going to start doing outreach again to present all these findings from the public outreach and from a RFQ/RFC, which is a request for qualifications, request for concept plan, that we use to solicit some feedback from the market to understand what would developers do here, what do they see that is feasible, are there some things that the community is asking for that they're like, absolutely, this fits in this market and this will be a win for everyone. Are there some things they think would be a challenge and maybe difficult to pursue? So we had about a 4 or 5 month process where we qualified developers because we wanted to make sure we were getting feedback and information from people who knew what they were talking about, that had done similar projects, that were experts in their field. So we qualified a certain number of developers. And in the end, we ended up talking to 10 different teams. And I'm going to go through a little bit of what we found through that and how that's going to affect the next process. And again, hopefully in the new year, we'll be moving into presenting a plan that we can review and finalize. And again, this is just a summary of the outreach that was done throughout this year. As I mentioned, we had several public forums, we had surveys, we've had lots of stakeholder meetings, we had a really great time at the high school. Also during, like, I believe exam time, so I feel like we've just been bothering a lot of people around town. But they were great. I mean, they were really fun to engage with and hear their thoughts. We've did some train station tabling, and then we had those interviews with the market over the summer, and then just towards the ends of November, we met with the property owners just to check back in with them and let them know where we are in the process and make sure that they understood kind of what was coming next. Some of the things that we heard throughout the outreach, I think the best thing is that there's been a pretty consistent vision and thought process and desire through all the different people we've spoken to, whether it be, you know, a stakeholder group of seniors or the high school students or the library board. There seems to be a pretty good consensus on what people would like to see here, which makes our job a lot easier. But from the public forum, we heard a lot about congestion and movement in and around downtown. Parking was something that came up a lot. People's perception of safety for pedestrians around Broad Street area and around the train trestles came up. So there was a lot of discussion about the existing pedestrian and vehicle access and congestion and safety from that standpoint. And then one of the things that they also got into a lot of was that they want to see more entertainment options in the downtown. They think that you'll have some great shops and great restaurants, but they want to see things to do. Movie theater came up a lot, seasonal events, music festivals, things that were geared towards younger audiences. They have some family-friendly activities. These were kind of some of the major things that came up, as well as people saying that there needs to be more diversity in the housing that's offered, whether it be downsizing, whether it be affordable, whether it be senior. They need to see more options for the residents. The citywide surveys kind of echoed that and brought up, you know, this very similar desires and thoughts. Here, it became really apparent that one of the things that the community would like to see is some sort of supermarket or grocery store. Nothing, I don't think there's anything too large, but maybe something that is a little bit like a Trader Joe's size or Aldi or something like that. That came up over and over again in the surveys that we received. We got a lot of feedback on architectural styles and outreach. They want to see traditional architectural styles that complement things that are already surrounding the area and the beautiful buildings you already have downtown. They would like to see more spaces for people to congregate and nice public plazas and opportunities for people to just sit and relax and enjoy themselves. And they brought up, as well as many other people, how important the library and the YMCA are to the area and what assets they are. That's been echoed over and over again through no matter who we're talking to, including the developers. And then we kind of wanted to see what places people are going to now to spend time and money, whether it be restaurants or stores, and the most popular choices were Morristown, Westfield, and Berkeley Heights. The stakeholder meetings that I mentioned were largely with property owners within the redevelopment area, those surrounding it, and the businesses that are in or around the redevelopment area, as well as the Summit Downtown Inc. They talked a lot about some of the issues that they've had in terms of parking and trying to, one, the management of the parking and how the timing is of that. And there's definitely competing interests because, two users right next to each other. One's like, we need more short term. The other one's like, we need overnight and long term. So there's kind of some tension there over parking, a lot of which I think can hopefully be alleviated with this redevelopment process. They echoed the traffic circulation issues on Broad Street and Morris Avenue. They pointed out some intersections they thought were unsafe, some concerns, like the corner where 7-Eleven is. Some people have some issues with visibility and people coming in and out of there. They also wanted to see more outdoor space. The library and YMCA both would like to have opportunities to have outdoor space, if possible, through redevelopment. And they said both the businesses and property owners on this side of the train station and those on the other side of the train station both said they wish they were more connected visually and it was a safer and more attractive connection. The high school outreach, they were mostly focused on, this doesn't surprise me considering that probably most of them aren't driving, but they were very focused on the comfortability and the safety of walking and biking around downtown, as well as using skateboards. That came up a lot. They were very interested in green design and sustainability, being part of the built environment, whether it's through rain gardens or through, the building technology, which is great to hear. Good to know that that's what the future's looking for. And then basically everything else they described in conversations, they want places where they can hang out and not feel like they're being rushed or they're bothering anybody or anything like that. They just want places to be able to sit and talk, or whether it's, hanging out at a skate park or it's just sitting in a plaza. They just want some space to congregate. And they, again, brought up many of the entertainment issues where they said they wanted some things to do after hours, after school, and that there wasn't really a lot for them right now in the downtown. So as I mentioned, we did a request for qualifications and a request for concepts. This went out, publicly. We did the request for qualifications to find out what kind of teams would be responding to this request to make sure that, again, they were qualified to give feedback on what would be best for this area or feasible in this area. We had 8 respondents to that, and we had really great conversations where we learned a little bit about these developers and the other work that they've done, some of the things that they see as opportunities and challenges within Summit, and it was just great to see the excitement around it. Like there's an excitement and there's a interest around this that I haven't seen in a lot of the other redevelopment areas that we work on, and there's a lot of creativity going on. So it was fun to see the different ways people came in and approached the site, and from everything from very simple structures on one lot to going all the way to restructuring an entire street. So we got a good response in terms of the developers that we qualified. They have done lots of mixed use developments near train stations in more suburban urban areas, and they in general are very excited about Summit and think that this is going to be a great opportunity for them. We gave some pretty general requirements in the RFQ and RFC to kind of let them be more flexible, more creative. We didn't want to tell them too much what needed to be there, but we put things in there like the community would like to see parking garages, the community would like to see a potential supermarket, they would like to see activities and nightlife, and so we had them, so they responded with some of their ideas, some potential concepts that they could see, nothing that had, had a lot of in-depth study or analysis, but just some ideas. If you could go to the next one. And some of the things that we reinforced to translate the public's desires into the market findings was we let them know that these were the priorities that came through public outreach and that we wanted them to try to incorporate in any of their ideas or concepts. And they included civic engagement, which means even after a plan is adopted and a developer is chosen, that project is going to be publicly vetted and the public is going to be involved in that, and they need to be comfortable and willing to do that. Pedestrian-friendly streets, car circulation and traffic issues being solved and improved through redevelopment, high-quality architecture, sustainability in buildings and streetscaping, open space, equitable development, which largely is related to affordable housing, whatever they offered would support and not cannibalize the existing downtown, and something that can increase the number of residents and foot traffic in the downtown to support the existing businesses. So from the things to note that we found from the market's response is that, one, a lot of what the community is wanting to see is possible. The only thing that we kind of heard some pushback on was movie theaters, but that's everywhere. I mean, everybody wants a movie theater, but they're hard. I mean, even the ones that are still there are struggling. But some developers did present a more flexible option of like a black box theater that can host smaller movie nights and maybe some community events, but a full-fledged movie theater they didn't think could fit on the site given the size requirements and might not work from a market standpoint. But other than that, the other things that all of that public outreach that we just went through and the priorities that we mentioned, they thought were all feasible and parts of the development, and it was good to see how some of them approached that creatively from different areas. But the things that came up over and over again, I just kind of wanted to highlight these that the 10 different developers that we spoke to brought up were that it's going to be very important to have connections to the green and the downtown. Visually, they need to be attractive, but they also need to be safe for all modes of transport. A small supermarket is possible. They think something larger, like a ShopRite or something, is not appropriate and probably wouldn't, one, fit or be the right user for the site. So I would say about half of the developers that responded thought that that was a use that they could have within the redevelopment area. There is some interest in adaptive reuse, which some had discussed reusing the firehouse for a community room or for a restaurant, using the post office, incorporating that into the new development, which is great because some of those buildings get to be used and be saved and be used as community spaces in the future. They believe there were some that wanted to do all for sale, there were some that wanted to do rental, there was some that wanted to do a mix of both. So what's good is both markets are available here, so that gives you a lot of flexibility. Office is a strong opportunity that several brought up. You already have a growing, strong office market here, and they think it's a natural place for another office or to be headquartered or a business to be headquartered in the downtown and take advantage of all the assets you all have. The YMCA and the library, they believed were assets for any development that came in as community resources, as well as things that their residents or employees would want to use. They want to find out most of them want to find out how to bring those uses in and incorporate them and complement them. Phasing will be key for the success of any redevelopment here, given the parking issue that already exists and the fact that most of the city-owned land is parking in this area. How this gets developed and phased and timed, that's probably, as most people brought up, going to be the biggest hurdle for redeveloping this area. So that'll be something that we'll have to take into consideration and be very careful about. All of them focused largely on public property in terms of where they saw the best opportunities, and this included the parking lots. And what's good about that is this is a non-condemnation area. If private property owners want to be involved, they're more than welcome, and this may provide some opportunities for them to be a part of this and something bigger be reintroduced into the site. But if for whatever reason none of the private property owners want to participate, the developers found plenty of opportunities with whatever public land was there to do a lot of the things that have been discussed. And they all agreed in general that experienced retail was key and should be a big component of whatever retail piece was part of this project. And so this is kind of the next steps. I know it's looking very far into the future, and there's a typo. But so as I mentioned, we're going to be doing public outreach again in January. This is to kind of run some of these ideas that we heard from the market, run some of the best practice things that we understand, that we know in terms of how all of these things that you want to see here can be written into a plan that regulates the development here. That's going to take some significant outreach with specific stakeholder groups. We're meeting with the library's board for their first meeting in January because they're going to be, they're going to be an integral piece of this, and we want to make sure that we know all of their needs and concerns and issues. So we'll be doing outreach again in January. We'd like to January and February, and then by late February we're going to submit a draft redevelopment plan for review. So as I mentioned, that's not the final piece. That doesn't approve a project, that doesn't approve a developer. There's still a lot more to go from here, but it creates the shell for the project, for what could be there, and allows the public to start having some more specific conversations with administration and potential developers after the redevelopment plan is adopted. So I think a lot of people may think that everything's done once the redevelopment plan is adopted, but there's a lot of negotiation and a lot more steps after that process, as you can see. So what we'd like to do is submit a draft redevelopment plan by the end of February, potentially with a planning board review in May. And then that has to go through its own city council public hearing process in April. After that, once a redevelopment plan is adopted, if it is adopted in April, in summer of 2019, you can again begin engaging directly with developers and potential projects that will be publicly vetted themselves. And again, even at that point, that's just seeing what possible projects people are interested in building and making sure the public's okay with them. And if you happen to find a project that you think, project or projects that fit the site and developers that you want to work with, you can finalize the proposals throughout the rest into the year. So the earliest possible construction you could see is actually spring 2020, but that is on a very, that is like best case scenario. But I kind of want to give some people some ideas, because one of the things we were hearing a lot was, are you going to start building tomorrow? Is this going to start building in 10 years? So just to let everyone know, there's still a lot of planning left. There's still a lot of work left before you're going to see anything constructed. And even this is, best case scenario. So you probably won't see, anything going into the ground before spring 2020 at best. But we just wanted to lay out something so the public had a really good idea of how this process works. And that's everything.
Thank you very much, Andy. Appreciate it. Michael?
Just for clarity.
Yeah.
So on that slide,
yeah.
Planning board review, do you mean March of 2019?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then
yes.
the spring of 2020?
Yep.
Okay. Right.
I was wondering the same thing. How do you
just time travel. It's not.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I apologize for that.
Yes. Planning board comes first,
yes.
then city council.
Yes.
Okay. I'll open it up for questions from members of council. Anybody from council have questions, comments? Mary, please.
Just a comment, actually. Thank you. That was very informative. Being the liaison to the library board, I know that they had spoken to you
yes.
and were concerned about so many new ideas that were they weren't aware of.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad to hear that you're going to January, because their January meeting, because I think that's really going to help. They have a lot of questions, and I know that you'll be able to answer those. And I think they're excited, but I think that as much information as they can
Absolutely.
get from you to help them through this will be very helpful.
Yeah, we were going to just have a quick phone call, and then I realized that they had a lot more questions.
Yes.
So I was like, we're going to have a follow-up. Don't worry.
Good.
So I'm
Good.
excited to talk with them. They're going to be an integral part of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Okay. We'll open up to the public. Are there members of the public that have any questions? Okay. Well, with that, thank you guys for coming
Thank you
in.
all.
Thank you for laying this out.
Thank you.
And we look forward to hearing back with you in the beginning of 2019.
Yeah.
A couple more weeks, and we'll be back again at this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your hard work.
Thanks.